It's time for the Property Podcast, where every week tens of thousands of property investors, new and experienced, join together to get news, knowledge and laughs at our expense. With me, Rob Bence.
And me, Rob Dix. Join us every Thursday morning for your weekly dose of property ideas and motivation. Then head over to our website at thepropertypodcast.com to keep the conversation going. Now though, let's get started.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Property Podcast. This is episode 139. I'm Rob B. With me, virtually, is Rob D. Hey Rob, how's it going?
It is going really well, thank you. So we are normally, I don't know how many miles away from each other, 10 or so when I'm not on the move. A little bit further today because I'm in Nottingham right now and you are in Liverpool. And the occasion was the Property Hub meetups last week as you're listening, but last night for us. So we're going to be talking about that in a sec because I'm sure there's lots to talk about. We deliberately haven't spoken to each other about it yet, so we don't know what went on at each other's meetups. And our main topic today is how to get your property let fast. We talk a lot about the bigger picture stuff, but ultimately you need to get tenants into your property, and the quicker you can do it, the more money you're going to make. So that is our topic today. So Rob, we've been talking for about 20 minutes. I can't believe I haven't asked you yet. How was the meetup?
Awesome, really good. So I was in Liverpool in the Albert Dock, if you know Liverpool at all. Great meetup. Silvio does a great job. Really cool crowd. Tried to speak to as many people as I could. I didn't get to speak to everyone. I didn't take a register, so I don't know how many people were there. But I'd say it was at least 20 when I first got there. So it was pretty good. And everyone was very well behaved. They finished at about 10 o'clock and everyone went home. So I got an early night, which helps when you record a podcast at 7 a.m. So yeah, it was a really good evening. And Silvio told me about the Bootle Mansion, which was quite interesting. So for those who don't know Bootle in Liverpool, the average price of a property is about 50,000. And he told me about the Bootle Mansion, which is 220,000. And he was telling me about a down valuation that after an appeal got approved after 2 days. I nearly fell off my stool. I wasn't on a stool, actually, I was standing up. But let's just pretend I was on a stool. I nearly fell off it because I've never known an appeal to be successful. And the valuer said, while I still disagree, you can have your valuation. So it was very hard to get a valuation on the Bootle Mansion because having a big house in an area full of terraces that are worth 50k and a property worth 220, you can imagine how it sticks out. So I can't imagine there being a lot of comparables there. So, yeah, interesting night. It's some interesting stories, and it was really nice to meet everyone.
Yeah, that's great. That sounds like it's the valuer just being like, well, I don't know. Do what you want. I'm going to go off and do something easier, which is probably no bad position to be in, really. If you get your valuation, who cares?
No, not at all. And how's Nottingham? It was Nottingham Derby, really, wasn't it? Yeah,
it's just off junction 24 of the M1. It's slap bang in between Nottingham and Derby. It was a really, really good night. I was feeling quite under the weather yesterday, and I had a long drive up from London. So going in, I was thinking, this feels like it's going to be hard work. Not because I don't love talking property, I do, but just because I wasn't feeling very well. And then sort of 2 hours later, I walked out feeling great. I just felt really energized by the whole thing. Really, really lovely group. Mark did an amazing job organising it, and it was just a really, I think this is a theme we're going to see all over the country as we get around a bit. A really friendly group and a big range of experience, like people from very serious players down to people who are just making a start now, but no one was showing off about it, trying to give it the big one or anything else. Everyone was just sharing information. I know some of the newcomers got really valuable tips, and even some of the people who've been investing for a long time picked up useful local knowledge from other attendees. It's the local knowledge that really excites me. It's all very well for us to talk about stuff on the podcast and through other channels, but it's the sharing of information at a local level is what the meetups are really valuable for, as well as the accountability and sort of just having fun and all the rest of it. But it's that local stuff that I think really makes a difference. So I'm really excited to see these meetups grow, and I can't wait for next month.
You didn't catch my man flu. Have you caught my man flu? Is that what's wrong?
Well, we've talked so much over Skype.
I haven't mentioned my man flu, have I? Have I ever mentioned that before?
Have you been ill, Rob? I didn't realise.
Yeah, I've hardly told anybody.
Yeah, we've talked so much virtually that you probably enough that you could have infected me. But I think I'm bravely fighting it off rather than succumbing. Yeah, last night gave me a real boost when I thought I'm going to be asleep in a corner somewhere by 8:30. So So yeah, really great night.
There you go. It could be our new tagline, the Property Hub, better than Lemsip.
Yeah.
We could go with that. We'll work on it, we'll see. Right. News story of the week. And London madness continues. So London, we've talked about it once or twice before and how crazy the property market is. And I was trading some stories yesterday. I've been up in Manchester and Liverpool and chatting to people, and they asked me about the London market, obviously, because the RMP office is down there and I live down there. So they were asking me about it, and it still amazes me, the price difference. You think I'd be used to it by now, that, the difference in value you get, but it still absolutely amazes me. And this is a prime example. Studios in London, not in Zone 1, in Hounslow, so I don't know exactly what zone that is, but I know it's not central London. Studio prices starting from, so the smallest property in the whole of this block that's being launched is 200,000. The studio, 315 is what they go up to. Still studios, not one beds. And there was a bit of demand. But when I say a bit of demand, you had people sleeping in the streets in the queue to try and snap one up. It's unbelievable. So because a property's under $250,000, people have been queuing overnight to put their name down to pay for one. So it's not like they're getting it for free. They're queuing overnight to pay. Bonkers.
Well, there's been a few of these. Well, there's always stories like this, but over the last week there was the UBS report, which said London was the most overvalued city in the world for property. There was another one, I can't remember who it was from, about the UK housing market in general, but it pulled out London. We'll probably discuss that next week. Of course, it came up at the meetup last night as well. It seems to come up, like you say, Rob, in pretty much every conversation. And I was being ribbed by someone there about when I'm going to sell mine in London. But if we're looking at the property cycle, people queuing around the block for a studio for 200,000, would we say that was a signal of some kind? Also, apparently, someone told me last night, I didn't realise this, but I think it's Europe's tallest building has just been announced for London. The signs are all there.
They are. Scary. But don't say we've not warned you, because we've bored on about it for long enough. And I've just checked, it's Zone 4, London. So it's miles out. So a queuing overnight to pay big money for a studio in not central London doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sure to many others. Okay, but what will make sense, I hope, is our main content, the main core of our podcast this week, which is how to get your property let fast. The show notes you can find at thepropertyhub.net/let your property fast. So thepropertyhub.net/let your property fast. And Rob, we've teed this up with a magazine article that's just been published in our wonderful new magazine.
Yes, got some lovely reactions from people about that last night as well. But yes, there is an article of the same name in the magazine. So through our own portfolios, and we've made mistakes and we've had great successes. And so we've boiled it down to 3 factors, what we've just suddenly decided to call the 3 Ps. We've just invented this. Rob, introduce what the 3 Ps are and try to talk about the first one without using the word fundamentals.
Right, okay. So the 3 Ps, here we go. We're not using the word fundamentals. I should do a charity donation for every time we use the F word. Right, the 3 Ps are the property, the price, and the partner. Okay, the property, and the price, and the partner. And these are the 3 reasons, the main reasons why your property will fail to let. There's others we're going to add on, but these are the 3 core reasons. So first of all, the property. Before you buy a property, ask yourself who's going to let this property. So don't just think, I like it. Think about your end user. Think about the market that's going to let from you. And hopefully this answer should be lots of people, not just one type of person, but lots of people. That's the type of property you want to go for. So once you've got the right property, you want the right area as well. So you want strong aspects to the area, such as transport links, hospitals, universities, schools, all these things, shops. You want to be looking for it all, investment going into the area. Don't just look for 1 or 2 things, look for it all. And then you know that if you've got a good property in a good area, you should do very well. Because it's got fundamentals. Sorry, I had to say it. But it will make a difference. If you do have the fundamentals, which are all those things that I've just mentioned, then your property should always let well, provided the following 2 things are looked after as well.
Yeah, the first of those 2 factors is the price. The price is not the only thing that matters, but it does matter a lot. We all want the top money, but a property that's got a tenant in there with a fair rent is better than an empty property which you've attached a price tag to that makes you feel better about yourself. It's important to get the price right. And there's an art to that. You don't want to be selling yourself short, and there's an art to knowing when you can push the price and get that extra 25 quid or whatever it is. But getting the rent right is pivotal. So to give you an example, we've talked about this kind of thing before, but a really striking example when you look at the figures is, say you're trying to rent a property for £500 versus £600. At £500, you could let it straight away. People will be snapping it up. At £600, it might take you 2 months to find someone who's sufficiently in love with it to pay you £600 a month. Your missing revenue over those 2 months is £1,000. So that means at your difference in rent of £100 a month, it's going to take you 10 months to make up that difference. And your tenant could leave after 6 months if you only put them on a 6-month AST. So while £600 looks like the smarter move in that case, 500 would have been smarter. Maybe the best number there would have been somewhere in the middle. Maybe at 550, it wouldn't have been snapped up on day one, but someone would have wanted to take it within a week or so. So getting that price right is critical, and it's not difficult to do. It's just a case of benchmarking on Rightmove or Zoopla and talking to a letting agent. It's not a difficult thing to do in most markets, so spend a bit of time and make sure that you pitch it somewhere in the middle. Don't sell yourself short, but not too greedy either. So
that's the second P. The third P is the partner, or your letting agent, the person you partner with. Now, if the property is right and the price is right, it can only mean you've got a dud agent. Now, that's dud, not good. So don't necessarily jump to this and go, oh, well, my property is awesome and my price is about right, so it must be a terrible agent. It doesn't mean that. Be honest with yourself over the price and the property. But if it is the case, then you need to assess it. Now, this isn't going to be a pitch for yellow lettings. We're not the only good agent out there. There are plenty of bad agents, though, so make sure you avoid them. And if you have got a good property and you have got a good price, then you need to look at them and make sure they're doing a good job. Ask for updates. And if you're not getting the results you consider to be acceptable, then consider changing them. You're not tied to them while your property is being let. So if the results aren't coming in and you've got a good property that's priced well, then consider maybe dual marketing your property or moving on altogether. So bear that in mind. So that's the property, the price, and the partner, your letting agent, will make all the difference when it comes to getting a property let. However, there are things that your letting agent should be doing, or if you're self-managing, you should be doing, in addition to what we just mentioned, to make sure you get your property let. So make sure these are happening as well, and this will allow you to assess your agent that you're using, or, as I said, if you're self-managing, you need to make sure you're doing this as well as a minimum.
Yeah, we had a big discussion last night as well about self-managing versus using agents, actually. And there were quite a few people there who self-manage and wouldn't have it any other way. So they clearly get this right because their properties are full. But if you're self-managing and not doing a very good job of the things we're about to talk about, then you might be costing yourself money. Okay, so let's start with the very basics. Good photos and good copy. So the first place almost everyone looks for a property to rent is on the portals. Your property is going to be listed alongside loads of others, and you've only got that 1 split second to make yours stand out so people click on it. It's as simple as that. So that's where the good photos come in. Most important thing of all. Good copy makes a difference as well. So this is something that we've seen at Yellow. On occasions when we've had properties sticking, just refreshing the copy actually makes a really big difference. Adding in more detail or emphasizing different selling points. You would have thought, or maybe you wouldn't, I would have thought that the photos would make probably 90% of the difference. But in fact, the copy is very important as well. So rather than a couple of lines saying a great opportunity for a 2-bedroom property or whatever it is, having proper detail in there does make a big difference. And also, the more detail you've got disqualifies people who aren't going to be interested. And that matters as well, especially if you're self-managing, actually, because you don't want to be showing around people who ultimately aren't suitable. So good photos and good copy. There is no excuse. Writing good copy doesn't take very long, and your agent should be experienced at doing it. Good photos these days are not expensive, and it's an investment well worth making because it could cost you 50 quid, and it could be the difference of 50 quid every single month. So get those two right at an absolute minimum.
Next 2 things to do is make sure you're advertising on the main websites. If you are self-managing or your agent is managing it, then make sure they're not going cheap on you and just going on the more peripheral websites. Make sure they're going on all the core websites so you'll get the most eyeballs on your property. So as a minimum, you want to be seen on Rightmove and Zoopla. So make sure you're on both, because you'll get maximum coverage. There are others, but I'd say just they're the mandatory ones. They're the ones that you have to be on. The others are nice to haves. And different areas will respond better, we found, to different websites. So whereas one area may do really well on Zoopla, another will do really well on Rightmove. One doesn't necessarily dominate every single area. So that's why you have to be on both. So make sure you're on the main websites. The other thing is, this sounds like really simple stuff, but it's not always done. So it's worth adding, is responding quickly to inquiries. Taking a day or two to come back to someone may sound reasonable, but in the lettings world, it's not, because people are looking to make decisions. And if you're taking a day or two to get back to them, they may have already gone to see other properties, and the timing not be right for them then to go and look at stuff. So your property is out the running just because you weren't quick to get back to them, or your agent wasn't quick. So make sure that your agent is on the ball and they're quick to reply. Otherwise, you could be stuck with a property on the market a little longer than it should be.
Yeah, the lettings market moves fast, very fast. So that's a really important point. And it ties into the next point as well. The next part, the final part of the process, having marketed it and got people around there, is sealing the deal. So is it going to let to the first person who comes through the door or the 20th person who comes through the door? You want it to be the first, obviously. And we were talking about speed. Really important is reacting quickly to feedback. So when people come through, if they don't say straight away, yes, I want it, find out why. Find out what it is that's putting them off. Is it that what you've got being advertised doesn't match up to reality in some way? Is it that the price needs to be dropped? Is it that it needs to be furnished? There are lots of reasons why a property might stick, and the key is to find out why it is and put it right quickly. If you had 4 viewings in the first week, nobody went for it, and you could have made that call there and then, obviously that's a better position to be in. Related to that, chasing for feedback. If your agent isn't doing this, then they should be. If you're not doing this, then you should be. If someone comes to view and then they don't say, yes, I want it, you should be trying to find out from them why that is. Otherwise, you won't be able to get that feedback in order to respond to it. This is something where a lot of agents do fall down because to be fair, it's a difficult thing to do. When someone has decided that they don't want something, they'll often just disappear and you won't be able to get in contact with them again. Or they might not give you very much because they don't like it, but they're too polite to say why. But if you can get that feedback, that's really, really valuable. Agents tend to be quite poor at this, but it's worth pushing them on. And finally, I said if 4 people are coming through in the first week and they end up not taking it, well, you want to avoid that happening. You want to get your property let, obviously, in as few viewings as possible. And a big part of that is understanding the property and its selling points. So if you are self-managing, then you've got the advantage on this. So you obviously know the property quite well. You could, of course, be biased and not be able to put it in its proper context because you haven't seen the rest of the rental market. So that could be a disadvantage. But in general, you know the property. But if you're using an agent, you don't want them to be an awful, sleazy, pushy salesperson, but you do want them to give your property a bit of a push, to actually understand its best points, understand what the advantages of living there, be able to say why it's a good property relative to what else is out there. You want someone who's going to give it a bit of a nudge. And often with agents, when I've rented in the past, you'll book in viewings and they'll literally open the front door for you and that's it. And you might think, yeah, the person can make up their mind for themselves, but it does make a difference. Getting a little bit of spiel does make a difference. And again, it can be the difference between letting in a week or a month. And financially, that's a lot of money. If your agent could do it in a week and it would have taken you a month, then you've probably just saved you their fee. So we've gone through the whole process now, from the very first buying the property through setting the price to all these little tricks to try and get it let quickly. It's the cumulative effect of all of these. If you tick all those boxes as you go along, that ends up in your property letting fast.
Okay, so that's how to get your property let fast. We've looked at the 3 Ps, making sure the property is right, the price is right, and your agent, your partner is right. And then going into more detail, looking at all the things that you should do as well, being on the right website, having good photos, copy, and then we've looked at sealing the deal. So lots in there. Hopefully that's been really useful. But this is a take on an article that is in the Property Hub magazine. Now, we've gone into more depth there, and it's really good because the magazine allows us to expand in much longer format on these subjects than we can ever do on a podcast, or blog posts don't really work that well either. So the magazine allows us to go long form. If you want to check out the magazine, go and have a look at the propertyhub.net/magazine. It's £5 a copy, which includes delivery, which is an absolute bargain. It comes out 4 times a year, and it's packed full of incredible content. It's not, 50% adverts and 50% content. There's just loads and loads of content in there, and the feedback's getting better and better. And I do believe, I am biased, but I do believe the latest one's our best one yet, and we've got big plans for the next one. So make sure you're in line to get the next one for when it's due out. Go to propertyhub.net/magazine. Now, Rob, I do love it when we get a resource of the week that is a new one on me, because not only are the listeners getting a new resource, but I am too. And even better, I'm a bit of a bookworm, and you've delivered a book for us.
Yeah, this is one that I've just read recently, actually. And it's by Donald Trump. It's called Trump, The Art of the Deal. And so this is kind of topical as well, given what's going on in America right now. It's really interesting because he wrote this book. I don't know exactly when it was. I think it was the early 80s. It was a long time ago. So he was already established by that point, not as absolutely massive as he is now, but he'd already done some big deals at that point. And what the book does is he talks through some of the biggest deals that he's done, or the most important deals he's done, and how they came together. What I found really interesting about the book is that I was spotting concepts in there that we talk about and that I've noticed in my own investing, but he's just applying them at a massive scale. So I'm looking at my notes from it now, and he talks about things like, it pays to move quickly and decisively when the time is right. You need to be dealing from a position of strength. He talks about starting a negotiation at a ridiculously low price just because it's then hard to get back up to where the other party wants to be. Even in bad times, there are buyers for first-class locations. There's absolutely loads in there. And it's all stuff that you probably would have heard in other places, but I think it's just really interesting to hear this applied on projects worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So I do recommend it. You might think it's dated because it's from 30-odd years ago, but the core aspects like that of negotiation and hunting out the best sites and all that kind of thing, they never change. So whatever you think of the man, he's done all right. So I think the book's probably worth checking out.
I will do. I'll buy that. And if you want a link to it, it's in the show notes. It's thepropertyhub.net/letyourpropertyfast. That's thepropertyhub.net/letyourpropertyfast. So it's time for our review of the week. And a big round of applause, please, to Geezer7. I've been listening to this podcast from the very beginning, and it's really exciting to see the podcast blossom and its architects, the two Robs, go from strength to strength, offering all sorts of resources for the aspiring or established property investor. Beyond the podcast, they now offer a dizzy array of tools, resources and tips. Within the podcast itself, there's a great and varied topic each week, and my personal favourites are the ones giving concrete examples of investments, including all the numbers, such as the episodes about their first investments and the deals they've done in 2015. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you, Geezer7. That is an awesome review. We're glad you like the podcasts, and I'm glad you like the actual working details of deals. Next week's podcast isn't a mechanics of a deal, but it is the mechanics of a business in property.
Yeah, we will be doing more about deals, absolutely. But next week, though, we're talking about lessons learned from running a letting agent. So we've been running yellow lettings for, I don't know how long now, 18 months or so. And we've learned a huge amount during that time about lettings, about business in general, about property, about all sorts. Have we got everything right along the way? Spoiler alert, no, we haven't. But the things where we have had to change course are the most instructive. So I think that's going to be probably a difficult episode to record, actually, but a very worthwhile episode to listen to. I think it's going to be really interesting. We flip the lid, we go uncovered on Yellow Lettings, the business. It's going to be really interesting because lettings is a really tough business to be in, really tough. So we're going to talk about all the things we've learned. So hopefully you can avoid the mistakes we've made and also take advantage of the things that have worked for us as well. So that's next week. I think that's going to be a really good episode. So make sure you tune in for that. So that's episode 139, how to get your property let fast. All the show notes, as we mentioned, are at thepropertyhub.net/letyourpropertyfast. So to get the resource of the week and all the other links we've mentioned, go there. But until Tuesday, when we'll be back with Ask Rob and Rob, and next Thursday, when we'll be back with the Property Podcast, I wish you a good weekend. Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Property Podcast. Make sure you join our mailing list at thepropertypodcast.com.
And remember, we love 5-star reviews. Rob even loves them more than air miles.